Okay, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed lunch. We are going to have a quick panel now. I've only got a few questions, so this may be an opportunity, depending on how long it takes you to answer, that we can ask you to ask a question. So if you do, please put your hand up, just tell us where you're from, and please ask a question, rather than sometimes there's a kind of a long statement of stuff. So I just ask you that. Okay, Barry, coming to you first. In your experience, what real operational problems has XR solved on the island of Ireland so far? What do you see kind of next on the roadmap, and what measurable results have you seen?
Well, maybe I try to put that a bit into context about who we are and what we do, and why we were even formed in the first instance. So,
should have asked you to introduce yourself and you, Susan. My apologies. I just jumped into it.
Not at all. So, I'm Barry Kennedy. I work at an organisation called Irish Manufacturing Research, and we were formed by industry for industry to solve challenges that they're faced with. And what we had observed, and I was working in industry at the time, the technology was changing at such a rate of knots that it was very hard to know which technologies you should take on when to try and drive improvements within your manufacturing organization. So as a cluster of companies, we got together, we formed this independent not-for-profit research centre, co-funded by government, to help industry to demystify, de-risk and deliver emerging technologies. And the reason why the Irish state agreed to do that was because although we've got pretty much full employment in Ireland at the moment, and it's all looking good, and when you look on the international scale, you'd see that Ireland on the productivity metrics sits up there as the global first in the world. And one might say, sure, we've solved it, we're grand, sure, what do we have to worry about? But when you look at that metric and you figure out how it's calculated, it's based on the total output of products that we export from the country versus the size of the population we have.
Okay.
And the thing about that is we've got large-scale multinationals, the Pfizers, the Boston Scientifics, et cetera, the Intels of this world here. And the products they export is of very high value. So it looks pretty good. Mm-hmm. But when you look beneath the surface, that's when you begin to see where there's some real challenges. So today we are the 9th most expensive salaries in the world. Wow. Even more expensive than the UK, our near neighbours, by a margin. And so you look at our digital readiness, we are 23rd in the world in terms of digital readiness. And you look at robotics, and you do a comparison across the world leaders are South Korea at 1,060 robots per 10,000 employees. Germany is operating about 430 robots per 10,000 employees. The UK is operating at 111, and Ireland is down somewhere between 50 and 60 robots per 10,000 employees. So you kind of then say, hang on, Houston, I think we have a problem. And so our job as an organization was to help companies go on that journey. And if we are going to hold industries in this country, then we're going to have to start automating and adopting technologies in ways we haven't, of which virtual reality and augmented reality is an important technology that needs to be adopted into industry. Now, that's the introduction, the reason why we were formed as an organization. Yep. Now, back onto your specific question around VR and AR. So by way of example, one of the ones that I was most fond of was during COVID. We had a company that rang us, and they were in the automotive game, and they had to they had to bring up a manufacturing line, get it qualified, because Europe opened up before Ireland did in terms of manufacturing production. So a lot of our sites were still shut down, and they couldn't get the engineers from Europe to come over to qualify this line. So our own VR AR team were pulled into action, and pulling together VR AR headsets and high-end camera systems, vision systems, and we were able to do remote qualification for the first time ever for this particular line, so that they can get up and running and stay afloat as a business. So there's an example of where, technology we could pivot when we had to, and we brought in VR and AR to do that. Today now we've got platforms out in the market, like we've a tool called Navit, which is a very interesting one, but it's the largest movie studios that's been built in the world today is using our technology called Navit, and it's a VR AR, but it's a mixed reality solution where we get the BIM models from the buildings, and we have a 360-degree camera on a helmet that an individual walks through the site once a week and captures the progress that's been made on the build versus what the BIM model says it should be. And today, the CEO of one of the largest movie studios on the planet reviews every week the output from this here, and they call it, we're doing the Navit review, which we feel quite chuffed by because it's the actual product name of this thing here. But it shows in the construction industry importance of that, being able to map out and get a digital mapping of your building as it's being built versus the model. And then if you find down the road there's some problems, you're able to go back and track through that. So again, that's a game changer in the construction industry by way of example. And then the final one, maybe just to mention, is a company, a heavy engineering company. We've delivered a solution for them, and that was launched at CES in Las Vegas there last year, where they wanted to be able to show their product, which they make couplings for the likes of JCBs and Caterpillar diggers and bulldozers. And we built a platform for them that could show virtually these couplings on any kind of a Caterpillar or digger virtually, and they could get a team of people wrapped around that particular product looking at it from different sides when they're trying to redesign it. And they could also use it for training people how to service these things out in the field, even if they were non-native English speakers. So there's some examples across different industries where we've used the technology successfully.
Brilliant, thank you. Just, and before I come to you, just a follow-up question, because I hear this a lot, COVID, it was really difficult. Why are we not still doing that? Why are we not still doing that remote assist in the truest form, or are we? Are you still seeing them using that solution? Have you got any kind of insights to why suddenly we've got people traveling and stuff like that?
Well, I think the real solution is somewhere in the middle, right? I think it's important that people meet with people, and we always need to continue to do that, okay? I think that's important. But I do think once we come out of COVID, a lot of that risk-taking within industry certainly slowed down. We went back to the old way. We were able to pivot and do things that you'd never in a month of Sundays have been able to do outside of COVID. So things have slowed down a little bit, which is a pity. It's a pity that the risks and the adoption of these technologies hasn't stayed at the same pace. And I think we need to figure ways to do that. And that's why it's important for organizations like PRISM and ourselves and IMR get together, and our partners in the UK as well, in the Catapult program and things, where we can create these safe spaces for industry and businesses to come and look at these technologies and how we're deploying them, like today outside there, so that it opens up the eyes of industry about what's possible. And we've got to figure out ways and try and keep that momentum going.
Perfect. Thank you, Barry. That's some great insights. Sue, same question. Please introduce yourself and what you do. Forgot that bit. And then I can remind you of the question after you've done your introduction. Maybe that's the best way to go.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. My name's Sue McGuire, and I work for an organisation called Digital Catapult. Digital Catapult is funded by an organisation called Innovate UK. We're a UK-based company. We're part of a wider Catapult network. The Catapults were set up in around 2014 as a result of a revised industrial strategy. The Catapults focus on specific sectors. So there's a medicines catapult, there's an offshore renewables catapult, there's 9 catapults, and I'm not naming them all because I can't remember them. But we are Digital Catapult. We're not sector specific. Our focus is on driving the deployment of deep technology. We work across a wide ecosystem of stakeholders, from startups and scale-ups all the way through to government, VCs, academia. We have 4 core missions. One is to support deep tech scale-ups and startups. Can we have the next, Google ABC from, I was going to say Belfast.
Yay!
Also, we support organisations around their industrial decarbonisation journey. So, the drive for net zero is really, it has to involve digital transformation as well. That's a core part of it. The third one is, so I'm shaking here. I think it's just a nerve. It's not that I'm nervous.
Okay.
Just making that clear. I'll swap hands. One of the other ones is to support industrial supply chains. We all know through COVID, do you remember the toilet roll fiasco, global shortage of toilet rolls? That's not the one I'm talking about. This one was actually around car manufacture. Yeah, suddenly we couldn't get hold of batteries, and suddenly, suppliers, OEMs started looking at the supply chain and realised that in actual fact, they didn't fully understand the supply chain. They didn't fully recognise all of the levels within the supply chain. So we're doing a lot of work to help businesses understand the supply chain, but also to build an open and resilient and transparent supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth one is really to support industry as they look to deploy deep technology. When we're talking deep technology, we're talking those technologies, we call it future networks, which is effectively connectivity and sensors and photonics. AI, machine learning, everybody, obviously that's a very, very popular topic at the moment. Immersive, which is why we're here, absolutely delighted to be supporting PRISM. We also look at distributed ledger technology, single source of truth, which ties into our supply chain piece. And then at the very edge is quantum. But we're also part of the team delivering the UK Digital Twin Centre, which again is sort of part of the PRISM event today. And my colleague will be talking about digital twins and the immersive aspect of digital twin technologies later. That's the introduction.
Perfect. And just to remind you of the question, it was about what kind of real operational problems have you seen that XR is kind of fixing or overcoming?
I think it's worth pointing out here that originally when Digital Catapult were looking at immersive, we were looking very much at creative.
Yeah.
The creative sector is a huge sector within Northern Ireland. And so our focus, I think originally, was on supporting immersive companies and design companies within that creative sector. So we can give examples, Animotive, they're out in the foyer. They worked with Digital Catapult on one of our immersive accelerators. And as part of that, we introduced them to a series of VCs. So we prepared them to present to the VCs. We did the work. And I'm delighted to say that Sun Valley.
Shore Valley, yeah.
Sun Valley make raisins. I don't think they're interested in immersive, but there we go. It could be a theme. What are they called?
Shore Valley.
Shore Valley.
Yeah.
God, that's me sacked. Shore Valley, from the Republic, actually invested in Animotive. I mean, that's such a great story. And that was part of, as a result of their engagement with DC. Another digital company, creative company we worked with, Yellow Design, have gone on and have, developed a number of products. I think one of the ones that I'm particularly interested in is their Innovate, which effectively models an asset, yeah? And because what they were finding is it's expensive and difficult to transport your product globally if you're looking at a global market. So why not make a virtual model which you can actually take? Yeah, it reduces costs, shows you're on the front foot in terms of technical deployment. So Yellow Design is one. And then the third one I think I'd talk about would be Artemis. Artemis are one of our industrial partners in the UK Digital Twin. Artemis have an ambition to create the first net zero vessel that will visit wind turbines. But as part of that, they've built a fully immersive simulation for training. Yeah, obviously it's super expensive if you're trying to train people how to drive the boat. They've got to be on the sea. The weather conditions, various things, but they've done this using immersive 360, 6 degrees, all of the technical aspects, and that sort of really helped them along their design and reduce the cost.
Perfect. Okay, which takes me on probably to my second question, is what you see the biggest gaps holding back XR, and how can the IMR and the Digital Catapult help companies to kind of scale and really work with industry? Maybe start with you, Barry. We'll come back to you. We just finished you.
I think there's a few things. One of the projects that we're working on, just to remind me of it there, is DigiWind is called. It's a European project, and our job is to build the platform that's going to have a full immersive experience, VR, AR immersive experience built in, to train up 980 master's degree students and 10,000 operators in how to service wind turbines. And the challenge associated with doing that is volume of data and video files and things like that. So our job of work is in the background. What's happening there is to figure out ways, which we have been very successful in doing, and how you can shrink down the size of this thing here so that the experience, you're not using up, burning up half the planet trying to keep this thing going, and that the experience is positive in that the data feeds going back and forth wherever you are in Europe. It feels real time and dynamic, and that experience can be good. That's one of the areas. The second thing we need to do is to be able to simplify down this. I think Brian Cooney mentioned it earlier about no software or no coding, some coding, no coding. He said we need to be able to get the technology down to a point where actually an operator can go build the content themselves in the same way as our kids today do their own movies on their iPhones versus 10 years ago when you needed somebody to come in and do the videoing and the editing, etc., etc. That's when it's going to become really pervasive, is when it's that easy for you to do it. That's the obvious thing to do if you want to train somebody up in something on the manufacturing floor. And then the final bit, I think, that really needs a lot of work, although I think the vision systems and all, I think it's in good shape. It got real momentum. But we even saw it there this morning when we talked about, some of the training experiences that are going on. And then you look at the person and they're holding a handheld kind of wand to simulate doing a task. Now, if you're trying to get muscle memory in doing a task, which is what we're trying to use a lot of these things for, and you're not holding the real object that you're going to be doing the task on, then the muscle memory isn't there. And that's where I think in the aviation industry, they got it when it came to simulation and virtual reality experience and flying a plane, is because you're physically sitting in the cockpit, and whatever you're doing in that cockpit is exactly the same as it would be in the plane. So I think there's a way to go with some of these peripheral interfacing, haptic gloves and things like that to really give a person that feedback in terms of tasks that they do. So I think that's the journey we're on. I think that's what is really exciting, I think, for the team in PRISM to help pull that together.
I agree. And just touch on real quick before I come to you, Sue, the whole content management piece, I think, is really crucial and becoming more and more to the fore. A lot of the solutions I've found are kind of a little bit standalone. So they take the data out of their core PLMs or whatever it is, and are doing something which is useful, but none of that data is going back in. So having a kind of a content pipeline, I was chatting to a gentleman earlier about SMEs. It's difficult for them. They've got spreadsheets and documents and paper. So that whole digital transformation content management piece is something which is really important. Sue, how about yourself?
I mean, I think picking up on Barry's point, there's probably quite a long list of where the gaps are. But if I was to pick the top three, skills and capability. Mm-hmm. Without kind of the people who know how to design or deploy or to monitor, we're not really going to get any traction. I mean, Digital Catapult, working with Belfast City Council, did a programme called Creative Capacity Building. And that was really to support organisations to understand what the power of creative could be. Obviously, it was aimed at creative companies at the time, but really it understood that there needed to be the bridge. Yeah. Okay. The second one, I think, is use case, an operational sort of use case. We saw today some fantastic examples, the art of the possible. And the more you can bring the art of the possible to potential users, the better. But there's that bridge again between what's cool tech, and what is actually operational. Yeah. And I think that's really, really important. You'll see an awful lot of demos using Eirmersive, and it looks fantastic, but that's not your use case. And so sometimes it's really difficult to understand and to imagine how that would actually operate within your industry or within your particular production line. Yeah. And then the other one is really around awareness and an understanding of what XR can actually deliver for you as a business. And I think that's why, PRISM is going to be so good at delivering that awareness raising piece, because you don't know what you don't know. Right. Yeah. And so if we can demonstrate the power of XR and the power of the digital twin technology stack, then hopefully that will help people understand the journey that they need to go on and where they are on that journey.
I couldn't agree more. And I think congratulations to Camille and team. Actually, some great proper use cases, people actually using the technology and gaining benefit from it today. I think we could do real quick one question for the audience. Mark, so put your hands up if you'd like to ask a question to these two learned people. And to me if you want as well, but the learned people are better. There must be. Oh, there you go. See, that was 20 minutes. Okay, well, let me come up with a question for you. What do you see 2 years from now looking like in terms of this technology? You got your crystal ball?
No.
No?
No to my crystal ball.
Oh, okay.
I think cost of equipment has always been key.
Yeah. That's great.
You know, in Digital Catapult, when we first launched in Belfast in 2017, 2018, we had an immersive lab because kit was so expensive, that it's a lot to ask a company to invest in unless they actually understand what their benefit is. And we had an orphan. I've got my colleague in the audience who actually organised and ran that. You know, we invited industry in to see the art of the possible around immersive. And subsequently, you know, the cost of headsets have come down.
Yep.
Yeah. And once something becomes cheaper, then more people are going to start to use it. Yeah. And I think that was obvious today with the web AR as well. You know, it has to be something that people can get their hands on.
And I don't disagree with you, but there are billions of devices. Everybody's got one in their hands that still can use AR and solve problems. So I totally agree with you. I think the prices, the actual types of devices which are good for enterprise, rather than we're seeing a kind of whole bunch of wearables now where you can have multiple screens and you can use your, that's great and on productivity perspective, but we do need them that actually go into those difficult environments, construction. Yeah, if you take an Apple Vision Pro, for example, it's not really going to last in construction space. So I do think you're right, the price, but also the type of devices. We need to see a change in that. So thank you, Sue. Barry, just your last thoughts before we...
Yeah, I think one of the areas that we need to be careful of is where technologists, willingly going after and developing these things. And you see where the technology is adopted fastest is by people who are interested in technology, and gamers and et cetera, et cetera. I think we need to be conscious of the person in the middle of it. And I think there's a bit of work that's going to be required around that with industry in particular. Health and well-being, weight of these headsets on, how a person feels wearing a headset for any longer than 20, 30 minutes, the mood changes, and there's a whole bunch of complex things. So I think there's a bit more work required actually from the psychological point of view as well, as we look to fully immerse these in an industrial setting and create that very positive experience for employees and not a negative one where somebody's saying, oh, I have a pain in my neck, or I'm feeling a bit depressed, or I'm feeling sick or nauseous, or whatever it might be. I know we fixed a lot of those technologies, but I think over the next 2 years, I think we'll see a lot more of those types of things being worked on, and I would see that the ability for the user, the operator in a manufacturing floor to be able to use and codify or create content like you can on the iPhone today, I see that as not too far off. So I very much see that in 2 years' time as the way this the whole business and industry will go.
I agree. And just quickly to summarize, I think, and Bilal, I think you talked about the early adopters. That's where we are. But actually, we need to get into the rest of the people. In the area, we talk a lot about stakeholder management. Give me the budget. And also the end user bit, make sure they're using it and solving their problems. There's a really quick, interesting story. One of the members talked about, again, they were putting tablets, but it was in a big manufacturing kind of space. So they decided to pick the gnarliest tech phobe who'd been there 40 years. And if they can solve the problem for him, it happened to be him, could solve the problem for everyone else. And actually, when they listened to him and solved his problem, he became the biggest advocate of it. So there are the kind of tactics, which is all about change management. It's not about technology. It's not about selling boxes. It's about solving real business problems. Wonderful. I think we're finished there, aren't we? So thank you very much. And Barry and Sue, that was great insights. Thank you.